Welcome to How I Generate It, where I talk to AI filmmakers and creatives about their process, their projects, and of course, how they generate it. This episode is with filmmaker and YouTuber Haydn Rushworth. 1 year ago in June 2023, Haydn realized the potential of AI and started a quest to turn a screenplay he'd been working on for 10 years into a watchable movie. He's been documenting this journey on his YouTube channel, highlighting different tools and storytelling techniques. He's also very realistic about the current state of AI and is very good at articulating the drawbacks of using AI to create a watchable movie. Now, since we recorded this interview a little over a week ago, there have been two major video models released, Lumalab's Dream Machine and Runway Gen 3 Alpha. I bring it up because one thing Haydn talks about is the importance of storytelling. And the faster technology advances, the more important storytelling becomes. He has a lot of great insights, so I hope you'll stick around. Thank you for listening. Here's my interview with Haydn Rushworth. Haydn Rushworth, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, no problem. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. You've been starting a journey to create a watchable movie using AI technology. I love how you kind of started where you're very realistic about like the potential of what AI technology can do, but also like the current state. You're very realistic about like where we're at now and what some of the drawbacks are.
Yeah.
So you started this a year ago in June 2023, and now it's June 2024. What are some of the things that you've been excited to see happen in the past year?
The emergence of all these AI tools is just breathtaking. And I've been on the same journey as most other people where you get your initial impression and you see something like Sora. Or to be honest, everybody's first experience with AI is one that leaves you going, whoa. And the journey for me, I think, has been one of, there's this initial kind of blown away. And that's what caught my attention, thinking, well, as soon as I created my first still shot from one of my scenes, it was the first moment that I'd begun to see in real life, at least in visual, something that had only existed in my imagination for 10 to 15 years. It was a thrilling moment, an absolutely thrilling moment, because I don't expect my screenplay, a screenplay that I spent more than a decade writing, for a story that I absolutely love with a passion. I genuinely laughed and cried a lot when I wrote that thing. And so I really love this story. But it's just with current Hollywood economic models, which I'm fine with, by the way, it's unlikely that this screenplay will ever see the light of day as a finished movie because it's perceived as being too expensive to make for an audience that's perceived as being too small. And that's just economic model. That's just business sense, and I'm fine with that. But I'd given up on the idea of ever seeing this movie brought to life going the traditional route. Mm-hmm. But I didn't write it to read it. I wrote it to watch it. Yeah. So from my perspective, the screenplay is finished to first or second draft level. So I'm satisfied with it at that point. And I do keep going back and revisiting and tweaking and working on it and updating it. But for me, the job's only half done. I want to see this movie. And I mean, it may just be a given. It's maybe self-evident that something that I was willing to spend 10 years of my life working on the side of my real job, I'm quite happy to spend another 10, 15, 20 years working on until I get to see the thing finished. So I'm playing the long game here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You do get a really good job in your first video showing like, the budget, and you kind of raise your hand up like the budget was up here, but the audience is down here. But I think that audience for stuff, there's kind of like this underserved audience, like they're only making things that appeal to everyone in a way, or appeal to the widest audience possible. And now people who can tell stories that look as well, eventually, like you said, this is a long game here, that will look as good as those movies, but they'll appeal to a smaller audience. So you have an individual person creating a movie that appeals to a smaller audience.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's a really exciting thing. I think you do a good job of bringing people along and saying like, I can't be the only one, or I know I'm not the only one who does this. And I agree, you're not. I feel like this is something that there's probably a lot of people who are in the same boat that are like, I know that there's 1,000 people out there who, in the world at least, who must want to watch this movie too. And those are the people you're trying to reach, not
Yes, that's
not a million or 10 million or something. So
no, and it's a deliberate choice not to go chasing views
yeah,
from the. But I mean, there are tools like vidIQ and TubeBuddy that are brilliant at helping you to figure out what are the trending titles and keywords and themes and subjects. The problem is you don't create a niche that way, and the problem with a niche is you never get big audiences that way. So I had to decide, right, which way am I going to go with this? Am I going to pursue the quest to make the movie, or am I going to begin a new quest to build a YouTube channel? That one has to prioritize over the other. And for me, I've decided to stick with, I'm aiming for a quality audience rather than a quantity audience. And yes, people like me, I'm trusting that the audience is going to grow. I'm trusting that once we start to create AI video content that is credible for writers and storytellers, then they'll start to go, oh, I want to be on that bandwagon. At the moment, most of the AI video content I see on social media is not made by storytellers. It's not made by professional writers. It's not made by professional filmmakers or directors. It's made by social media enthusiasts who are playing with the toy. And I'm fine with that. But unless we move beyond that, unless we get the writers on board and saying, look, this is an opportunity for you to bring a big vision to life, or at the very least, and I think we're at this point almost now, this is an opportunity for you to test out a concept, to test out an idea for a script before you go to all the effort of writing it. And so that's, definitely looking for the writers to try and say, you guys need to be getting onto this bandwagon and using it. Because, I mean, you'll know how it is. At the moment, writers and actors are terrified of AI. And from my perspective, ironically, those are the two groups of people who AI would be hardest. It would be hardest for AI to replace.
yeah.
Because, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. Like, I feel like everyone's afraid that AI is going to take certain types of jobs, but anyone who's tried to have AI write a script for them, or, you instantly realize, like, this is not AI strong suit. It can summarize things really well. You can give it a bunch of stuff and say, hey, tell me what this is about. And it does an incredible job of that. But when you say, write a prompt for this kind of thing, the prompts, they all sound the same. Like, you can tell that they're written the same. And when it comes to scripts, they're just like the most hacky, worst version of scripts. There would be things that, like, it's cool that a computer did this, but at the same time, like, it's not really that, it's not good, like the novelty has worn off as far as, like, I can't believe you can do this for the creative part of it, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And the one point I keep harping on about is this idea artificial intelligence is artificial head, but not heart. It's all logic with no emotion. It's all reasoning and no feeling. AI at best will only be able to spot patterns of human behavior and replicate it, but it will never understand it organically.
Yeah.
Because that side of our humanity is what divides the artificial intelligence from human emotions. Entertainment, I often say, it's made up of two primary core ingredients: surprise and emotion. And that's a whole different subject, because then that gets really interesting. But to create that emotion, to create that feeling, and the same as in music, same in every area of the entertainment industry, to be a great creator, you're not a filmmaker, you're not a musician, you're not an actor, you're not a writer, you're a feeling maker. And it's hard when you're great at what you do as in the entertainment industry. You become highly skilled in the art and craft of creating emotion in the consumer, in the audience, in the viewer. And AI has no idea how to do that, because it will never understand that. And that's our remaining strength. And I believe it will be that way for a long time. So to write a really engaging story that you really feel for the characters, you're really the ones that really move you. Think of a Forrest Gump type movie. I watched The Crown, and we've all got our favorites. something that really moves you emotionally, and you think AI wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
But a great writer with using AI tools might be able to shortcut the process a little bit.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really interesting about the project that you're taking on, your screenplay, is that it relies so much on emotion. I feel like you've set a higher bar for yourself because
Absolutely.
of the fact that you're doing a romantic comedy where you have to
Yes,
respond to the characters and you
absolutely.
have to respond to the emotion.
Yeah, well
Um,
spotted. And I've deliberately done that. I've deliberately done that, or without shame, I am not shying away from this, because I'm like, if this thing is ever going to work, it needs to be able to make my movie. And if it can make my movie to my satisfaction,
mhm.
you'll be able to do anything with
Yeah,
this.
agreed. When you started, one of the things that you did is you highlighted some of the not the problems, some of the things that AI had a really hard time doing. And I think some of those it still has a hard time doing, but it's getting better. So one of them was consistency in characters and just consistency in general of hairstyle, props, and everything. Another one was authentic movement of faces. The big one I think is just like this has bothered me so much as well. It's just like the fourth wall problem. If you could just kind of talk about like any of those really, but like especially I want to go into the fourth wall problem because I think that's the thing that really makes AI movies unrealistic. That it really easy to spot right now, at least.
Yeah. I had a great time a couple of nights ago at the LTX Studios new product launch down in London. And I got to talk to the most senior people at LTX Studios, and just I got so engaged in these conversations, I didn't think to film anything. So the content I have to share in my next video has very little from the event, because I got so engaged in these conversations. And it was really, really exciting. One of the panelists, she's a prompt engineer amongst her many other job titles. I thought, since she's a prompt engineer and one of the panelists, I'll go ask her how I can solve this problem. I went to her and I said, look, I'm having an incredibly hard time creating authentic emotions in AI characters. I can get blank face, no problem at all. And I can get happy face, that's okay. But anything beyond that is really hard. And she said, actually, I'm not sure. She said, I don't know about that one either, actually. And oh, great, thanks. But she did give me one great tip. I mean, she pointed out that AI can only really identify and replicate something that it has been told what it is.
Mhm.
So you have to first show it something and say, this is a ball, this is an elephant, this is a giraffe, this is a human. And until it's been told that, it just sees all this stuff and goes, well, that's interesting. And it might be able to pattern match, but it still doesn't have any meaning for what those patterns mean. And so, at some point, by the way, I think there's a real opportunity and need for somebody to specifically train AI models with a massive range of human emotions, not just people's faces, but the sound of their voice. You have to get some actors and just go through a bunch of scenarios where they are creating these emotions. It's how our faces move, it's how we interact together. Like a woman and a man who are flirting together move differently to a woman and a man who are fighting together.
Mhm.
And a woman and a man who are on an awkward date move very differently together to a woman and a man who are on a date that's going really well. I mean, that's, and again, in a scenario where you've got a boss interviewing a subordinate, and so there's so many different scenarios where the interaction between the humans cannot be disconnected from the facial expressions, the movements, the intonations in the voice, so many things. And unless the AI is specifically trained on human behavior and told what all of these things are, it will be very, very difficult to replicate it.
You were talking about the training, and I feel like if you think about images that you see in magazines and things like that, it's usually people who are looking directly at camera. They're kind of
Of
moody,
course,
like no one's showing real emotion.
it's like, I'm beautiful, I don't have to smile, I can just stand here and look at you and you'll fall over yourself.
I have found that like putting the state of mind of the character in the prompt sometimes helps where, you'll say, um, with a, friendly and curious look on their face, you can get a little bit there. And then you'll have to
Right,
sometimes negative prompt too, like, because I've mentioned this
right,
before, but a lot of times, anytime I generate a picture of a man, I have to put in brooding, it seems, because they always think that men should be brooding about things. But I, to me, like that combination of trying to find like the prompt and the negative prompt can help a little bit, but
right,
it's not there yet. It's especially
right.
for like what you're trying to do, it's definitely not there.
Yeah. Actually, what I meant to I got sidetracked. That she did have one useful suggestion for me. I haven't tried it yet, but it sounded good. She said, if you go and get an image of somebody with the expression that you want, pull it into Midjourney and have it reverse engineer it.
Yeah. I do that a lot lately too, because I just get tired of writing prompts and
Right.
trying to think of what am I trying to say? And that's something that I've been doing a lot too, to be like, okay, help me out with this. And it iterates it really quickly. So could you just really quickly talk about that reverse engineering using the describe function in
So
Midjourney? How do you
yeah,
use it?
I've used it very little, if I'm honest. So essentially, you have the opportunity to import into Midjourney a picture, just upload an image, and then the prompt that you type is just describe, and Midjourney will then feed back to you the AI's interpretation of what it's looking at.
Hmm.
And so, if you've got somebody with a subtle face, a suspicious look, for
Hmm.
example, yeah, there are obvious ones like laughing and angry, and you've got the extremes. But I'm desperately interested in all the nuanced emotions in between. In theory, you may be able to get a hint of what meaning AI has in its bank against that type of expression. And so her suggestion was start there, and that may give you a clue as to where to drill down and go looking.
Yeah, it's like we're almost having to learn, like AI is trying to understand our world and trying to figure
Yeah.
out like what we mean by prompts. And like this is a helpful way of looking at it from, well, from our perspective, what does AI see in this picture? What is important to it? And I like
Yes.
that in the mid journey, like when you do that, you get like four prompts, basically, like four options, and you can generate them all. But really what I like to do is just look at the, like, find the words that, like, oh, I wouldn't have used that word, or that word didn't occur to me, and then include it in the
Right.
prompt and kind of, but it gives you
Right.
kind of a palette of words to start playing around with, which is
Right.
really nice. Yeah,
Right.
that's a
Have
good
you
tip.
had some success with that describe, that reverse
I
engineering?
yeah, I have for, like, certain styles that I'm looking for sometimes, like, where it's like, I really like that, but I don't know what that's called. You get a lot of words that, like, this isn't one of them, but translucent or opalescent. If you're looking for a certain style, like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that word necessarily, but yeah,
Right.
that's what it
Right.
is.
Right.
I can't think of the ones for emotions, but like when I've tried to put in images of people, the look that it said, like that the character had, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And it was like an emotion I wouldn't necessarily have written down myself.
Right.
But when I use that word, I could always get the look on the character that I was going for. So
Right.
it is helpful, I think, for sure.
It's never as straightforward as you think. So all those times that we first came across these AI images, we were like, "Oh, this is amazing." Type a little bit of this, and amazing stuff happens. And it does until you try to control it. And I often
Mhm.
say AI is like a wild horse. It's incredibly impressive. It's dazzling. It's powerful. It blows you away, but incredibly hard to control. But it is becoming easier and easier to control. And I think part of that is learning to speak the other language.
Yeah.
Um, it's,
Absolutely. And really quickly, for people who don't know what LTX is, could you just like
oh, sorry.
say like
Yes.
what they are? Yeah.
Light Tricks is the name of the organization. So I guess LTX is an abbreviation for
Ah,
Light Tricks.
tricks. Okay.
And LTX Studios is their software that they are hoping to do something that I'm excited about that's different, where you have a one stop shop for telling your story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they're trying to do. I have to say the reason why I'm excited about LTX Studio, even though I've used Midjourney, Leonardo, the whole list of the popular ones, I either use or have used, and I've been waiting for a long time for companies to get to this point, for AI companies. In fact, I've got a video from 5 years ago that I recorded saying somebody needs to do this, and it's this
Yeah.
idea that the movie industry and the gaming industry, if you were to draw a Venn diagram
Mm-hmm.
between the two of them, they have been slowly crossing over more and more and more into each other's territory for decades now.
Yeah.
but it's by accident rather than by design. The gaming industry still thinks of itself as the gaming industry that's expanding into movie stuff. The movie industry is still the movie industry expanding into gaming. Nobody is owning the crossover point, like genuinely saying this is our territory. And that crossover point in the middle is one of the final areas of democratization of the entertainment industry. It's where you can have a writer with a big vision story, and they can use a tool that is as simple to use as a video game to turn their big vision story into a watchable end product.
Yeah.
That, for me, I've been waiting for that for years, because I've been writing my movie for years, and all the way along I've been writing it trusting that when I get to the end, then I'll figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
But I always said that if this movie never gets made, I don't want it to be because I didn't finish writing it. And that's what kept me going. So I finished writing it. And then, but I all the way for the last few years, since about 2015, I started looking at the market and going, somebody needs to create a tool, because all the elements were there. All the elements for example, having actors in zip up motion capture suits. You can get them for like a couple of $1,000s now. I mean, that's so cheap, but and that work really quite well. But to have, that with a video game, you're essentially controlling the characters with just a few variables with a hand controller. Well, a zip up motion capture suit is just an input device with many, many more variables. And so you could have your characters inside of a room, inside of an environment, a spaceship, on a 17th century French galleon. And, it could be anywhere. And then you can kind of record these two actors playing out this scene. And then in theory, you ought to be able to then replay it from multiple different angles with multiple different lighting setups, with multiple different lenses on there. And that, for me, I was watching all this technology that's already floating around thinking, can somebody please pull it together and turn it into a tool that will help me get my movie made? Well, nobody is doing. But then last year, when I saw all the AI stuff, I thought, okay, maybe this is where my dreams are going to come true. And that's when I started looking for a company, kind of scanning the horizon for somebody who would pop up that would say, we're aiming to become the go-to platform for storytellers to turn their big vision into a watchable version. And LTX Studio is the only one. They're the best so far. I think other platforms are offering multiple services, but they're doing it from the perspective of, these are the features that we offer.
Yeah.
What I needed was a tool that said, let us guide you through your storytelling creative journey. And as you need a tool to complete the next task, we'll provide that tool for you. And that's what I want. I need something that writers will use because it's instinctive and it works the way their creative processes are working, rather than them having to go pulling different tools from everywhere to try and do one bit here and one bit there.
I feel like the tools that we have now are the reason we have the content that we have now. So like you can generate some really nice aesthetic videos. So you have like these liminal dream core videos or Panavision 70 type things. And people will really be able to like create an aesthetic because the tools help you create content that is in a certain type of aesthetic. But the tools aren't there to help you create a story or a movie. And that's, I think once we have those tools, people will actually be able to make the things better. And I can tell based on the fact that you're excited about this one tool that you see this, I imagine, as something that will help you achieve your goal of creating a movie, which is great.
Eventually.
Yeah. Still not there yet. Sure.
And this is what was great about going down to the event in London and actually talking to the guys, the senior guys of the company, because I got to ask all kinds of questions to gauge where they're going with this and whether or not this is a horse worth backing. So, so to speak. We talk about character consistency a lot, but it's a lot more that's needed. The word we should be using is continuity.
Yeah.
Character consistency is an important part of continuity, but continuity involves things like all the scenery remaining consistent. It involves things like being able to cut to and fro shots of three people together and they're in the same place, in the same position each time. It's about making sure that the right kind of props are there. you think about the amount of stories where something subtle visually changes and the camera is on that, so the audience gets a clue. Oh, something's just happened, and that's important. There's an open window there. That cat that just walked past was the same one that walked past a few moments ago, and all kinds of little clues. Until you can have complete continuity, you can't tell stories that show something that isn't quite as it should be.
Yeah.
Because with AI, most of things shot to shot aren't quite as they should be. So you can't.
Yeah.
So we can't tell those kind of subtle visual stories yet. We're a long way from that as well, and we need continuity for that.
You can do text to 3D video assets, and text to game assets. I feel like when you talk about this stuff, it's making me think of like if you could just generate a set the way you would do
Yes,
in
exactly.
a map or something. So it's like, here's the room. Every time I talk about this room, this is the
Exactly.
exact room, and then I want to have
Exactly.
these characters do things in this room. So
And I
that
think that
was exciting for sure.
I think that's where it needs to go. I think that we need to move. I think where we're at with AI right now is important, but I think AI needs to blend with current gaming technologies to give us that consistency, so we can lock down the things that we need to lock down.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Do you, just out of curiosity, I don't know if you ever used, because I've also been interested in this world of like, how could you use video game technology to tell a story? A long time ago, there's this movement called Machinima where people were trying to use video game engines to, create animations and stuff. And there was this popular Red versus Blue series that just used the Halo game engines to create stories,
Right.
like short little videos. And then this one tool came out called Plotagon. I don't know if you ever remember Plotagon, but I feel
No.
like it was so ahead of its time in a way, because what it did is it used video game technology, but to use it, you would type in a screenplay, just like
Oh,
is it Final Cut, Final Draft, whatever.
Final Draft.
It looked like, yeah. So it looked like screenplay software, and you would type the character name in, and then it would
Right.
say, which character do you want to use? And then you would add that character, and then you would have them type in their, like, what they were going to say. And then for an action, you would say walks across the room,
Right.
and then you could have another character and you could have them interacting. A lot of the things that you're talking about, consistency of the set, consistency of characters, the
Yeah.
dialogue, the voices that went with them, was
Yeah.
all there. But the problem was, it was like the voices, like text to audio, was still really bad. So everything was very monotone. Everything was not very believable. Um,
Well,
but it's like, to me, it was like, so that was like probably 10 years ago. I
right.
had the same feeling that you did of like, I want this tool where I can just generate my
Yeah.
own characters and generate my own sets,
Yeah. Well, the trailblazers in this that are being completely ignored is
Mhm.
Minecraft.
Yeah.
If you look at the amount of Minecraft videos on YouTube where the kids they're voicing characters, they're acting out scenes, and they're doing it in this world that's constant. Yeah, all of the elements are right there, and the kids are playing and using that. And the movie and TV industry is just off in their own world. The gaming industry is off in there. Nobody's paying attention to the potential size of the demand for a
Mhm.
tool that will let you live out your dreams for real,
Mhm.
and record them, and to turn your stories into reality. Yeah. So you watched in the Minecraft videos, that for me was like, the kids are already doing it.
Yeah.
It's showing that there's a demand. It's showing that there's an appetite, but
Mhm.
nobody's going up from there. So no, I had great conversations with the team at LTX Studios. They some other things that are coming down the line that are exciting are things like audio. My goodness, they're
Mhm.
building an audio room to try and get Dolby surround sound, and to create so they can start bringing in cinematic soundtracks. Wouldn't it be great if you could map the emotional flow of a scene and put points along the scene at different timelines to see where's the crescendo, where's the tension building, where's the tension being released, how does the emotional flow go? This is for small creators like me. This stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
That and
And to be
oh,
able
and
to it Oh, go ahead.
that, by the way, while I remember, they do have a plan to try and tackle the fourth wall problem.
Oh,
They
good.
reckon that within weeks they'll have something that will improve fourth wall continuity. They watched my video. They said none of them had thought about it until they watched my video, and now none of them can unsee it. Now all of them are watching it going, "Oh man, it's such a giveaway. It's such a
Yeah.
but it's one of those things, until storytellers and filmmakers start to use the tool, you don't quite realize what the needs are and the demands."
I wanted to say one thing about the fourth wall piece too is I've gotten to the point now where I can generate people looking off to the side in a pretty
Right.
good, realistic way. But then I've noticed this, you've pointed this out too, but then a lot of the things that would lip sync don't work if the head is at an angle. So it's like
Absolutely.
the characters have to be staring directly at the camera for the lip
Yeah.
sync to work.
Yeah.
And or it will work, but it looks just really awful. So there's this gap in the capability of what it's able
Yeah.
to do. So okay, now we can finally do this piece, but we still can't have them speaking realistically in a scene yet. So
But, you know,
once we're getting there, though.
well, I mean, I keep seeing white papers for different tools, and I forget which ones they are, but I've seen every now and again you see little pieces of the puzzle. And
Mhm.
so that's why I'm still trusting that this is going to work out, just because I see little pieces of the puzzle, like being able to lip sync with your head to one side. So I'm just trusting that market demand will lead to multiple players trying to figure out how to create the solutions to these problems.
Yeah. Let me ask you one kind of like hypothetical question, because I know that you have a high standard for what you want to achieve with your movie, and you're very realistic about like the
Years away.
technology isn't there yet, but you're bringing everyone along for the ride as this technology changes and showing tools and what they do and what they don't do to achieve your goal. But let's say that like today, June 2024, technology no longer advances. You have to deal with
All right.
only the tools that are available now. Do you feel like you could make the movie that you want to make with what's out there now? Assuming that you have like 10 years to make it, but with current technology. Do you
Nowhere near. Nowhere
no?
near. And I wouldn't want to, because it would be so bad that it would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And because the
Why
technology,
and I was gonna say, why not then? So I wanna like, what is the thing
here's the
that you
thing.
feel like what are the big drawbacks right now to the current state of
It,
the technology?
in order to tell a story properly, you need the focus of the audience's attention to be on the characters and not on the tools that are being used to tell the story.
Mhm.
So the AI needs to become invisible. You need to not think about it. Let me give you a great example. 10 years ago or so, I have two sons who were they're in their early 20s now, and at the time they were kind of 10 and 12, and I sat down with them to watch Back to the Future for the first time.
Mhm.
Right? They weren't having it. They were like, "Oh, Dad, this is old. Why are we doing this? Please, come on." I said, "Look, just give me 10 minutes." And I had to explain the first scene a little bit.
Yeah, it's
But
confusing, yeah.
but they were in. Once I'd got them on board, they were in. It became one of their favorite, most watched, most rewatched movies.
Yeah.
Now, is that because the CGI was so magnificent that it was dazzlingly impressive? No, it's because the story was brilliant. The story was so timeless. So you could, I mean, if you stop and look, you can see the 80s kind of CGI. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And that's great storytelling. The tool should be out of the way of the storytelling so that you either don't notice it because the story is so good, or it becomes invisible, in which case it's about adapting your story to meet the needs or the limitations of the tool. So let me give you an example. I'll tell you what I would do if I had to freeze it today and say, right, this is all I've got. And this is what I'm already planning on doing. I've already uploaded an ebook of my movie in kind of story form to Amazon. I need to tweak it, make some changes, but before I start actually promoting it. But then I want to do a picture version where I've got still shots
Mhm.
from the movie that will never get made.
Mhm.
And then I want to do the audiobook. But then I want to do the audiobook with still shots
Mhm.
that for the movie that won't get made. But I want to have the sound design sounding really engaging. And that we can do right now. And so I could sell those, and even with the movie, if I were to kind of create the audiobook with voices for dialogue, that where you've got characters delivering dialogue lines and then narration going on to carry the rest of it. And then just with video, they could be still shots or these slightly animated versions of photos. Most AI video is just slow motion, slightly animated stills at the moment. That's what I would do, and I would upload those videos to YouTube in one scene at a time, and promote it and try and get to the point where I'm building an audience. And I would, so you could monetize it on YouTube eventually with enough views on the visual audiobook. And the other thing that I would do is create real social media accounts for my fictional characters.
Yeah.
So asking the question, the characters in my movie, what would happen if they were real? And if they had social media accounts, what would they post?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of AI content being uploaded to Instagram right now, and people are getting quite comfortable with the idea of, oh, it's an AI character, it's not real. Okay, people are fine with that. So I want to take it a next step further and say, well, let's take characters from a movie and have them post and try and build up an audience, and then point them back to the book, to the audiobook, to the video audiobook, where I've got stills and photos, and then I would probably create a comic book version as well, which we can do at the moment with AI. Just for entertainment, and I would sell that through Amazon. I think it would be possible with hard work to create a cartoon movie, because cartoon movies are, the audience's expectations are much lower, so you can get away with a lot more, and all of those things are more or less possible right now.
I really like that idea. Alternate reality games were a thing for a while that I was really interested in. And people would have like social media profiles for fictional characters, but it was all done in text, So it was just like their profile picture and then them in character in text sending tweets or whatever. But I love this idea that you mentioned where now you can actually have like your main character's Instagram account, and it's like pictures of them, whatever is tied to your movie, or I'm going out camping in the woods or something, if there's for a horror movie or something, and you actually see the character as if they're a real person on social media. And to some extent they it is just another account on social media that you would follow. So that's a really fun idea, fun tip for someone too.
I'd be interested to see how it goes, but it's because I mean you've got to have something interesting to say as well. And I'm going to stop at the point where they begin the movie, so I'm basically padding out the backstories. So if these people become real, and you're feeling their pain, and you're feeling their hopes, and you're feeling their dreams, and you're rooting for them, but you don't know how their life is going to turn around, that's the beginning of the movie. And that's when it gets started. And so I'm hoping to be able to just breathe life into the wider world of the story that I've created.
And I think that's a really good way to tie it into like what you said at the beginning of like, there's the budget versus audience thing. All of these things that you mentioned are a way to find that audience, or for that audience to find your story.
Yes.
And I think that's great. That's what is needed, I think.
So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. But to give you an example, my two main characters, it's a romance, and the two main characters, they are young people who have been landed unwittingly with dysfunctional superpowers. I probably will play out one at hers, because she got telepathy before she really gets going in the movie. She goes through a whole long period of heartache and heartbreak, working with the police, getting inside the heads of the most villainous scumbags in society, and losing every boyfriend she ever has because the guys can't stand it that she knows everything that they're thinking. She concludes that the telepathy is the problem, not her impatience. And then the guy himself, when we meet him in the story, he is a recovering alcoholic who was homeless after he won the X Factor, or a big shot TV talent show, shot to stardom, and just absolutely burned out, and ended up homeless and bankrupt and alcoholic. And then he kind of turned his life around, and just he refocused. The thing that keeps him going every single day to stop him going backwards is that he met a great mentor who helped him to understand one of life's great secrets, that a life of focusing on helping other people with their problems means that your problems just disappear, or they're minimized, and you don't have to turn to other substances for happiness. When you focus on other people's happiness, that becomes a drug, almost a drug all by itself. And so he lives his life kind of just trying to help people, genuine nice guy, which is why he gets landed with this dysfunctional superpower. When he comes into contact with another person, the other person's thoughts become real in an instant. And he thinks it's great, because if they're thinking of world peace, he's going to solve world peace. But then he realizes that if they are thinking about Armageddon, then he'll wipe out the world. And it's just as easy to do one as the other by accident. So he's like, oh no, I can't do this on my own. So he goes to try and persuade the telepathic girl to help him, until he learns how to control his powers. But she's not interested, because she's a cynical soul. But she thinks she can use his power for something on her shady agenda. So she agrees to help him, whilst the whole time she's just playing him. That was a really...
Yeah. No, I was wondering what how the two superpowers were gonna, like, because I feel like they have to be part of the it's not just the characters, like the superpower becomes a character of how they interact. It's like they are the thing having that relationship, almost like incompatibility, the incompatibility, but also the total compatibility,
Yeah. Both of them have a tremendous love-hate relationship with their power. Once I get going on that, telling that story, I love the story. I'm only just beginning to get started. But yeah, so consequently, I'd still love to bring the story to a wider audience. And so there are tools that will let me do that. And I figured, I'm just going to do what I did with the screenplay. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep moving forwards, and trust that the next step will open up when I reach the next milestone.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm really glad that you're bringing people along on your journey. And for people who are interested in joining you on this journey, what's the best way to follow you along? I guess, where can they find you? Yeah.
The YouTube channel is the primary space, Haydn Rushworth. That's just my name, and that's the name of the channel. From there, everything else will start to spread out. But I figure I need to get that working first, whilst I create the content gently. Yeah. I'm in this playing the long game, so unfortunately it's not going to happen fast, but it is happening.
Yeah, I love your realistic approach, your enthusiasm for the technology, but also your realism about where things are at now. Sometimes you get one or the other.
Yeah.
It's nice that you have both.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for being here. I feel like I had a list of things that I wanted to talk to you about, and we covered about a third of them. So it'd be great to talk to you again, over the time, as I know you're in it for the long game. So it'd be great to check in with you periodically and see how things are going.
Because I have a bunch of questions for you as well. I mean, I saw your posts and the stuff that you were posting. I'm like, this guy, his head's in the right place. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to do here, is connect with kind of soulmates and kindred spirits who are going, yeah, I'm trying to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, listener, for being here. I hope this made you think about your own project in a new way, or helped you see there are other like-minded people out there experimenting with AI. If you enjoy conversations with AI creators like this, don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, keep generating.